Today, Phuket is pushing for a special visa scheme for digital nomads, and the tourism sector urges the government to declare COVID endemic earlier than planned. All this and much more coming up in today's program. You're watching Thailand News Today, bringing you the latest top stories in Thailand and beyond. My name is Jet Gunther, and in our first story, Phuket officials are pushing for a visa scheme for digital nomads who want to live or stay in Thailand while working remotely. Under the proposed Phuket Community for Digital Nomads visa, eligible foreigners would be offered a work permit and a stay on the island province for 6 months to a year. The visa scheme would also allow foreigners to open a savings account and buy health insurance. The visa proposal was submitted to the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister and to the Foreign Affairs Minister by the President of the Phuket Provincial Administrative Organization, Rewat Arirop. The president says that many digital nomads spend a long time in a foreign country and earn a high income, adding that foreigners could help stimulate tourism on the island and boost the economy. He added that some nomads run their own businesses or work independently on a freelance or contract basis, such as programmers, web designers, or graphic designers. Some foreigners staying long-term in Thailand make money through cryptocurrency trading, freelance writing and blogging, and teaching English online for companies based overseas such as VIP Kid and Palfish. The tourism industry in Phuket was hit hard during the pandemic. By offering a visa and work permit to nomads, Rewat says the island will no longer be so dependent on seasonal tourists. He added that more nomads on the island could also lead to new business opportunities like co-working spaces, cafes, and restaurants. Businesses, especially those in the tourism and hospitality sectors, say July 1st, the date the government hopes to declare COVID-19 endemic, is just too long a wait for restrictions to be lifted. As operators watch what's happening in neighboring countries, Thailand's tourism sector is feeling anxious. According to a report, Chamnan Sawat from the Tourism Council of Thailand says July 1st is nearly 4 months away, and many businesses will struggle to keep going until then. He's therefore calling for the Test and Go entry scheme to be ditched well before then to give Thailand a chance to compete on the global tourism stage. He was quoted saying that Thailand used to be a first mover in terms of reopening, but the country is going to face losses as it is slated to be one of the last ones to fully reopen. Chamnan is calling for the government to ditch all travel restrictions by Songkran, pointing out that the tourism sector is more concerned about the economic damage of restrictions and the rise in suicides as a result. He adds that the rate of imported infections is negligible and does not justify keeping strict entry conditions in place. Meanwhile, the Thai Hotels Association agrees. President Marisa Sukoson Nunpakdi says Thailand's tourism sector will lose out to other countries if restrictions are not dropped before July 1st. She too wants Test and Go dropped before then in order to kickstart the economic recovery. Sanan Ang Ubon from the Thai Chamber of Commerce thinks COVID could be declared endemic earlier. Sanan points to several European countries where, despite new infections being reported daily, travel rules have been completely relaxed because governments understand the Omicron variant is less dangerous than previous variants. In addition, Vietnam has declared the virus endemic earlier than originally planned in order to allow the country to open up to international tourism.
Isn't it time for you to come back to the islands? Phuket is open and it's never looked better. Choose your trip to your favourite island with 5-Star Marine. Go to 5starmarinephuket.com.
Yala's new Betong International Airport is open for business, but you might be hard-pressed to book a flight there. Nok Air has suspended its route from Bangkok to Betong, saying it needs an additional 3 to 4 months to promote the airport among domestic and foreign tourists before it can reopen the route. Last week, Nok Air canceled its flights to the new airport due to a lack of passengers. The decision came just 2 days after its inaugural flight from Don Mueang to Betong on March the 14th, with Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and other government officials on board. After Prayut officially opened the airport for commercial business, Nok Air is having second thoughts. Despite an optimistic grand opening, Nok Air's Chief Commercial Officer Tirapong Chod-Chanapiban said the drop in sales is why the airline had to cancel its Mueang Betong flights last Wednesday and suspended the route indefinitely, adding that he wants the government to guarantee 75% of revenue for the first 6 months so the airline does not suffer too much of a loss. Unfortunately, last week's bookings were far fewer than the airline had expected, despite receiving positive feedback from agents and customers about the new route. However, the drop in bookings reflects a drop in consumer confidence, which may have been impacted by the daily surge in COVID infections in Thailand. Nok Air had originally planned to fly from Bangkok's Don Mueang Airport 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tirapon said the airline needs the next 2 or 3 months to promote Betong as a new tourist destination. He said the airline will offer flights for as little as 3,500 baht in hopes of attracting 5% of the local tourist market. After the Thai-Malaysian border reopens on April the 1st, the airline hopes to attract Malaysian tourists as well. Earlier this month, Nok Air also announced it would start flights between Betong and Songkhla's Hat Yai Airport. Meanwhile, Thailand's transport minister said Betong Airport could potentially become a regional aviation hub for international travelers among Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia. Thai health officials have issued a warning about a seasonal outbreak of dengue fever that may be more severe than normal. The Department of Disease Control said that while the focus is on preventing the spread of COVID, the risk of contracting dengue tends to be forgotten about. However, so far this year, there have been 3 early deaths from the mosquito-borne illness. DDC Chief Dr. Opat Gawinpong says this is already half of the 2021 total. He said every year, the incidence of dengue, along with that of other diseases such as diarrhea and heat stroke, rises sharply as summer approaches. Last year, only 6 people died because of dengue, while this year, 3 dengue deaths have been reported in just the first 3 months. According to a Bangkok Post report, all 3 deaths were in people who were either recovering from or being treated for COVID. Opat says that a contributing factor in the severity of their illness was the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Opat has cautioned against using such drugs like ibuprofen and high-dose aspirin to treat high fever or other flu-like symptoms, saying patients should take paracetamol instead. He adds that while most dengue fever cases are detected in children and young people, most dengue deaths are reported in the elderly population, those with underlying illnesses, and patients categorized as obese. Opat says a first priority around homes should be to get rid of any stagnant water. This will reduce the number of mosquitoes in the area and decrease the chance of being bitten and contracting dengue. The Thai Meteorological Department has forecast very heavy rain for the north, central Thailand, and the east coast of the southern region. A cyclone in the Bay of Bengal is the reason for the wet conditions, with a strong low-pressure cell in the middle intensifying and wind speeds at the center around 30 kilometers an hour. The cyclone is moving northwest at a speed of around 15 kilometers an hour, and the department says it is expected to make landfall in Myanmar today or tomorrow. This will lead to stronger southerly and southeasterly winds across the north, center, east, and south of Thailand, bringing more wet conditions with isolated heavy rain in the north and central parts, as well as along the eastern coast in the south of the country. Fishing boats in the Andaman Sea and Gulf of Thailand are advised to proceed with caution and avoid stormy areas. Rough seas are expected with waves up to 2 meters in height. The TMD has advised all small boats in the Andaman region to remain ashore today and tomorrow. And that concludes our report. Thailand News Today will be back tomorrow. Meanwhile, you're not up to date on the Thaiger.